Okay, originally wasn't planning to make a video about this topic, but I've seen enough discussions, disinformation, and some pretty disgusting xenophobic comments on certain social media apps. So, as a Spanish speaker and Latin American, I want to share my opinion on it, because I think this is a topic that can be a bit controversial for some persons. Before we start, please watch the entire video until the end so you can understand all my points. And remember, this is just my opinion. If you think I'm wrong about something or you want to debate a point, feel free to do so in the comments. I'm open to it. Let's dive in. First, why did this topic blow up? A few days ago, Toby Fox was promoting the Japanese translation of an indie game called Off. At first glance, there's nothing wrong with that. Everyone can promote whatever they want, but a lot of fans, especially from LATAM, start complaining because Undertale still doesn't have an official Spanish translation to this day. Toby posted a message on Blue Sky addressing the issue. He explained some points that help us understand the situation, while others are a bit more debatable. The first point was about the Undertale concert series. He said he'd love to see the concert performed in these countries because of the huge number of Undertale fans here. I don't know much about the concert tour, so I'm going to skip that and move on. The second point was about Undertale merch and the high shipping cost for Latin fans. This one is pretty understandable. Latin America is one of the most expensive regions in the world for the international shipping. It's due to a mix of factors: underdeveloped infrastructure, high taxes in some countries, limited logistical competition, and complex bureaucracy. These issues don't just affect Undertale merch. They make it hard for main franchises to reach Latin America officially. Even if they find a way, the prices will probably be very high because of all that. I really hope they figure something out, because let's be honest, a lot of unofficial merch out there is pretty questionable. The third point, and the one that made the most noise, was about game translations, specifically for Undertale. It still hasn't been officially translated into Spanish, Portuguese, Korean, Chinese, Russian, and many others. Toby explained that it's not because he doesn't want to translate the game, but because any official release has to match his vision. That's why Undertale only has 2 language options. He speaks Japanese himself, so he could work closely with the translators to make sure it felt right. He ended by saying he'll look into options to solve this problem. He also mentioned that he has no issue with fan translations. Even if they are not official and might include some fan interpretations, he's actually glad people put in the work to make them. Finally, he added that Delta is hard to translate right now because of the development of Chapter 5, and adding more language could delay the game even further. That's pretty much everything Toby said. I think he handled the situation quite well overall, but now it's time to talk about the complaints, and specifically share my thoughts of this idea of matching the vision, because honestly, it doesn't fully convince me. The problem with matching the vision isn't the concept itself. The issue is the implication that he needs to personally know every language his fans speak in order for a translation to be valid. Look, Toby is not obligated to translate his game if he doesn't want to, but come on, you can tell me that the vision of Undertale will be completely ruined just because he doesn't speak the target language. And yes, the game has a lot of wordplay that's nearly impossible to translate perfectly, but why does it have to be a one-to-one identical match with the English version? Even the official Japanese translation of Undertale isn't identical to the English one. There are small differences in some details that don't affect the plot at all. For example, Sans doesn't use his classic Comic Sans font in Japanese. Instead, he uses a Sokaku Pop style font, something like a fun pop style font that has a similar vibe in Japan. Is that a problem? Obviously not. The game was still hugely praised and happy even though it's not a perfect copy of the English version. So saying that every translation has to be flawless, identical interpretation of the English text to match Toby's vision feels a bit off. That's exactly why localization exists. Not every phrase or joke can be translated literally, but good localization adapts them so they work naturally in the new language. And no, Toby doesn't have to learn all those languages himself. That's what a professional translation team is for. They can handle the work while he supervises to make sure it stays true to his intent. And I know, some people might say, but it's an indie game, he doesn't have the money to hire a translation team, and how do we know the team will match its vision? That argument was more valid when Undertale first came out on PC, but years have passed, and now it's available on PC, Switch, Xbox, PlayStation, and even PS Vita. It sells a ton of merchandise worldwide and is considered one of the greatest indie games ever. Are we really saying that he can't afford a translation team at this point? Other indie games have done it successfully. Hollow Knight, Celeste, Blasphemous, and even the game he was promoting, Off, has translations in several languages, including plans for more. Sure, some of those games had issues with early translations. Celeste's Japanese version and Hollow Knight Chinese one had problems that were later fixed. but it shows it's possible. With all that in mind, it seems clear that Toby hasn't pursued translation for Undertale simply because he didn't want to. Is that a bad thing? It depends. If he never planned to translate the games beyond English and Japanese, then it's not really his fault that fans wanted to experience it in their native language. We can't force anyone to do something they don't want to, even if it will benefit part of the fandom. In the end, he's the one who makes the final call. You might be wondering, why am I complaining about this if I know English? In my case, learning English was more of a privilege than a necessity. I don't think everyone should have to learn a new language just to enjoy a game. If we follow the logic that everything must only be experienced in its original language, then ton of series, animes, books, comics and movies will never have reached this continent. I first played Undertale thanks to a fan translation. 4 years later, I replayed it in English to practice the language. Do you think I didn't get the Toby's vision? Of course I did. The game is enjoyable in both versions when the localization team does a decent job. The fan translation I used wasn't perfect. It had some issues with character pronouns and certain jokes had to be adapted, but those are normal challenges, they can be fixed. The same goes for other languages. The Chinese fanbase, for example, is massive, and they translated the Undertale Yellow fangame in just 3 days. That was impressive. Even though Toby's post was mainly responding to Latin fans, everything I've said applies to other languages too. It's honestly a miracle that the Undertale fandom is so talented and supportive in these countries. Fans have created their own translation not only for the main game but also for fan games. In the end, it's up to Toby. He can choose to hire a specialized translation team and supervise them to fix anything that feels off, or he can keep the game limited to those 2 languages. Personally, I'd love to see Undertale and Deltarune get official translations, not just in Spanish, but in all the other languages fans have been asking for. That way, more people could experience the game without having to risk downloading fan pages that might contain viruses. That's all for today, guys. I did not originally plan to talk about this, the video was working on this still not finished by the way, but I hope you enjoyed it anyway. This is just my opinion as a Latin American. We can't force developers to do things they don't want to. At the same time, I know there are even some American fans who support translations, because this is not about which language is better, it's about making the game accessible for the community that supports your projects and helping everyone feel included, no matter where they are from. Goodbye guys, see you in the next video.